Well, good morning, everybody. This is Mr. Samudio from the Music Room at St. Charles. And happy St. Patrick's Day. Yes, I am wearing my green, even though you can't really see it. I've got my sweater kind of covering it up today, but I am in my green. And it is St. Patrick's Day, so I thought we should talk a little bit about Irish music. So this, for those of you who are doing my listening journal assignment at home, this can function as your listening assignment for today, because we were just listening to some traditional Celtic music. So Irish traditional music began as what we call an oral tradition, which means it was passed down from one person to another. They heard the songs of Ireland, they learned them as children growing up, and they sung them, passed them on just by ear, we would say, or by oral example. And this is still a practice that's encouraged today. These tunes are just kind of picked up from others, from their parents, from their grandparents, from traditional Irish lullabies and songs. And many formal classes provide notes for students, just like we do here in the States, and they write down the tunes. But the best way to learn Irish music really is still just by ear. So the traditional music played by the Irish came to Ireland with the Celts about 2,000 years ago, somewhere in there. And the Celts were influenced by the music of the East. And it's actually believed that some traditional instruments, for example, the Irish harp, may in fact have originated from Egypt. So we may have even seen a harp similar to one that David would have played in the Bible. So let's just talk about the harp for a second here, because the harp was the most popular instrument in ancient times, and harpists were employed by the nobility to come and play at their parties. That's one reason why this harp is so much smaller than a traditional orchestral harp. A traditional orchestral harp's pedestal, which means this part of it, is almost 6 feet tall. This instrument is only about 3 to 3.5 feet tall. They were played for chieftains, and they were created for nobility. And this was until the time of what we call the Flight of the Earls in 1607, when native Irish chieftains fled the land under threat from outside invaders and outside countries. And with the flight of their patrons to the mainland in Europe, the harpists were left just to play for functions, for weddings, for parties, anything that they could. And so that's another reason why this harp had to be portable. And because Ireland is such a wet country, you couldn't go dragging an almost 100-pound harp, 6-foot-tall harp, across the moors to these kind of functions, to the taverns and stuff where these were being held. So they needed an instrument that was small, and they needed an instrument that was really, really portable. So we talked a little bit about the fact that Irish music was learned by ear. All of the harp tunes are also learned by ear if you study traditional methods of harp playing, and then they'll teach you how to begin to read music just like we would read a rhythm in music class. It actually wasn't until 1762 that tunes were officially written down in Ireland for the first time, and that collectors began traveling all over the country of Ireland compiling music. And a lot of that music, like the example behind me, is still on display today in what's called the Irish Traditional Music Archive, which is located in Dublin. And it's the largest collection of traditional and folk music anywhere in the world, which is really cool. And I don't know how well you can see the music behind me and the notes behind me, but there's little informational markings in the music. So the words to the song are actually written down here below. They're not underneath of the notes like we would traditionally see in something like a hymnal or a piece of sheet music. All of the lyrics, the words of the songs, are down here below. And there could be 2 or 3, 4, 5 verses down here, and the melodies would all be the same. So the sheet music is actually very short, because the melodies in Irish music continuously repeat over and over and over again. And the little markings up here would have been something that a soloist, like a singer or a bagpipe player or maybe a tin pipe player, would have known and been able to play. And then there's just little markings that tell them how to do it. You know, here, wait for the singer, or the time I've lost. Little cues to where we should be in the lyrics can be found in the music. Traditional Irish music traveled much further than the 32 countries in Ireland. Music had traveled all over the world thanks to immigration. It was during the time of the famine that vast numbers of Irish moved to the United States of America, and they brought their music with them when they settled. Traditional Irish music saw a revival, especially in the States around the 1920s, when recordings of traditional music were taken for the first time and made available to the Irish that were living abroad. The style of music was thrown open to even a wider audience with things like river dance, which you know is really popular and we see all over the TV during this time of the year. And so they really exploded Irish music as well as Irish dance. And in recent years, traditional music has been used in collaboration with European and American music in what has been known as the golden age for traditional kinds of music. In other words, the golden age is a time when ethnomusicologists, which are people who study all different types of world music, have really brought a lot of that stuff back to the States, and we've gotten great recordings of music from Africa and China and all over Europe. And so we're for the first time really getting a good library of those kinds of different music. So world music festivals are exploding. Right here in Dayton, we have a Hispanic festival with all kinds of great music. We have the Irish festival. We have the World Affairs at the Convention Center. We have all kinds of really cool music festivals just right here in Dayton that if you keep you keep in tune with what's happening in different websites and stuff, you can attend these festivals and they're really cool. Let's talk to finish up here real quick about some of the main instruments. So the first instrument that I want to talk about is the fiddle. The fiddle is the instrument that you see being played behind me. It's what we might call in traditional music the violin, except when it is being played as a fiddle, you don't necessarily have to hold it the same way. If you notice that her chin is not on the chin rest, and the instrument's a little further away from her body. Sometimes they even hold it with the neck kind of facing downward a little bit at a diagonal and play argo across the bow. And the other thing that's up here is a tin whistle, or what we might call a penny whistle. It's a very traditional folk Irish instrument, a very simple instrument. And for those of you who have played recorder with me, which you all will at some point, the fingerings are very similar to recorder kind of fingerings and the way that we play it in music. We already talked about the Celtic harp. And there's another instrument that we sometimes play in music class, because we have quite a few here at St. Charles, and that's called the bodhrán, which is a very big, round kind of frame drum. Almost looks like a Native American drum. And we play it by rocking our hand back and forth on it with a very special mallet. The last thing I want to talk about is these instruments right here. Now this is the bagpipes, but the bagpipes are not a traditional Irish instrument. They are a Scottish instrument. So the bagpipes, the difference between the bagpipes and what is a traditional instrument called the Julian pipes is how you play it. So in this picture, I hope you can see that the bagpiper has a very long extended mouthpiece that he has to blow through. The air goes into the mouthpiece and then it goes into a bag where it's in reserve, and then he pumps the bag and the air comes out of the pipes. And he also has a separate kind of tubing down here which has all the holes like a recorder that he can finger in. The Julian pipes have two kinds of bags. They have a bagpipe where the air is stored, and they also have a bellows that has to be pumped into. So thanks for taking a few minutes and joining me today as we talked a little bit about Irish music. I hope you're wearing your green, and I hope you're having a lucky day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.